First-person shooters usually have the D word as a thing you don't want, but sometimes that's not up to you, right? Some FPS games will be killing you no matter what you do. And in this video, we're going to be looking at 10 titles, FPS titles specifically, that you will absolutely 100% get knocked off. Welcome to ChaosGaming, everybody. Welcome to the channel. You guys let me know which of these games is your favorite, and obviously there are going to be some major spoilers ahead, so if you're cool with that, let's go. CLIVE, BARKER'S, JERICHO. Does anybody remember this game? Raise your hand. It's a horror FPS that launched back in 2007. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't anything amazing. But it did have some redeeming qualities here and there. The premise is a little complicated, but basically you're a member of a supernatural soldier group trying to prevent the release of an ancient demon on the world. Sounds kind of just straightforward, right? You start the game playing as a character named Ross. You're killed less than an hour into the story. But JERICHO then uses this as an opportunity to explain the world a little more, and it reveals that after you die, you can possess other members of your squad and live on. Yay! Now, it was a nifty way to get you acquainted with your player for core gameplay mechanics without the game having to spell it out as a tutorial. JERICHO may not have been a great game, but that was pretty cool. BIOSHOCK Infinite. Infinite was an interesting game because in terms of story and concept, it was a 10 out of 10. But in terms of gameplay, it was pretty divisive due to how much it strayed away from the established formula. Now, BioShock 1 and 2 were slow-paced action horror games, but BioShock Infinite was more of a straightforward action-adventure. Nothing wrong with that, there's not. You played as a man trying to escort a young woman with the ability to bend holes in reality and create these alternate timelines. Throughout this experience, you start to see how much certain timelines can be corrupted, and it's implied that your character is at least partially responsible for some of that. Now, it's kind of hard to explain what happens at the end of the game because it's complicated. But long story short, you're actually the villain, and you get drowned by the girl you were trying to save in order to prevent you from screwing up future timelines. Not exactly a happy ending for anybody. Medal of Honor 2010. This piece of reboot was meant to bring the Medal of Honor franchise into the modern era the same way Activision did with Call of Duty 4. Well, it didn't. It didn't recreate what COD 4 did at all. Medal of Honor's 2010 campaign takes the place in the war in Afghanistan. It's usually based on the Operation Anaconda. Now, I won't go into the story too much because it's boring and it's dull, and it just is. There's a big climactic battle at the end and your character dies in the firefight. And I think EA really wanted this to be this big emotional draw to an ending, but after the story was so shallow, it was just cheap. It felt unearned. For those of you who actually played all the way through 2010 Medal of Honor, what did you honestly think of the campaign? Now let's talk about a good one. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Now, COD 4 had you jumping between two perspectives in a fictional war. One side was the front lines with lots of explosions and booms and machine guns, and the other was a slower, stealthier, behind the enemy lines vibe. But about halfway through the campaign, you're playing on the front lines, and you are informed that a nuke is heading for your town, and in order for you to get out of there before the timer hits 0. So you make your way, you can take off in your chopper, you leave the blast radius, but then Infinity Ward pulls a fast one. Regardless of how quickly you evac the area, the nuke goes off, and you don't get out. You then have to watch as your chopper crashes and you crawl out into this desolate wasteland and you slowly die from radiation. The nuke in COD 4 was a haunting moment and one of the most memorable in gaming. COD 4 was not afraid to show off the horrors of war, and that's something the rest of the series, well, let's stick with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Now, IW followed up COD 4 with another explosive military adventure in the form of MW2. However, this time around, your character actually dies twice in the campaign. Yep. First time, it's during the controversial No Russian mission where you're an undercover agent who gets found out by the main villain and left for dead at the crime scene. Then, there's the infamous betrayal scene where General Shepard betrays you during a mission, kills you, burns your body in the field, and then turns the narrative on its head and makes himself the new villain. Modern Warfare 2 is a roller coaster of a story, and it's still one of my favorites in COD history. And interestingly enough, COD kind of stopped killing off player characters after Modern Warfare 2. Maybe they thought it lost its shock value, I don't know. After all, if you do something in every single game, people start to expect it. At number 5, Resistance 2. Does anybody remember this? This is what Insomniac Games was working on after Jak and Daxter, but before Spider-Man. It's an alternate history game where an alien race invaded Earth in the 50s. You're part of a resistance force to fight them off. The game actually got a lot of attention. It's got a cool blend of World War II era weaponry with sci-fi elements from Aliens. Now, Resistance 2 launched on the PS3 in late 2008, and it picked up where the last game left off without getting too far into the story for you. It largely revolves around a group of super soldiers who are infected with an alien virus, but they have it under control. So you can actually take advantage of their abilities, but you don't fall into their ranks like a zombie. However, After the big climactic battle, your character loses control and completely succumbs to the virus, leaving his crewmate no choice but to off him. It's emotional, it is. I wish Resistance got more appreciation. There hasn't been a new game in that series since 2012, and now that Insomniac Games has moved on to bigger and better things, we'll probably never see it again. Titanfall 2. Fantastic campaign. You were running and engaged in conflict between warring factions in the future, but the main focus was on the relationship between the player character and their Titan named BT. Now, throughout the game, you two bond over missions, you really get to know each other, and it all culminates in this emotional sacrifice by BT in order to defeat the main villain and get the player character out in one piece. So no, the player character doesn't actually die in Titanfall 2, but your mech does. When you think about it, he was your character. He was part of you, and his death arguably hit harder than your characters would have. KILLZONE Shadowfall. This is another series that was super underrated in the PlayStation franchise that I would love to see get revived on the PS5. It's a futuristic shooter. It depicts ongoing war between Earth and another planet called Helgen. Shadowfall was the final game in the series in 2013. It was a decent game, but it ended with a huge gut punch for fans on the series because of how many characters died and how much it changed the universe. After the final battle, multiple main characters die, including the player's character, and it's all done in an attempt to quell a future war from happening, although it's left very ambiguous whether or not it was successful. Now, unfortunately, Shadowfall never got the sequel we wanted. We'll never know what actually happened. Maybe Sony will bring Killzone back on the PS5. At number 2, Infinite Warfare. I said earlier that COD kind of stopped killing off player characters, but IW was the one exception, and I think they did it well. The Infinite Warfare campaign is amazing. Starts off strong, you're running around, you kill a bunch of baddies, learn about the universe, and then you do a boss fight, which was actually pretty unique for COD. After the fight, you're blown out of the facility and you're brought face to face with the main villain who executes your squad mates, taunts you, and then murders you out in the snow. Then, Infinity Ward pulled a fast one and revealed that everything we had just seen was a recording being watched by the actual main character of the story. It was a very tricky storytelling device that actually did a great job of introducing us to the world we're in and we're supposed to hate. IW was hated by the internet at large, but the campaign, one of the best. And finally, Halo Reach. Reach was Bungie's final hurrah with the Halo license, and they went out with a bang. Now, the gameplay was criticized by some fans for being too much of a departure from the roots, but the story was praised. Multiplayer was adored for its custom games and pure fun factor. Reach is a prequel to Master Chief's story and shows us what the galaxy was like before the Covenant truly took over and Chief entered the fight. Now, much of the campaign, you fight against the Covenant. The game ends with this extremely emotional battle where no matter what you do, you die. Throughout the story, members of your squad are picked off one by one, and it seems appropriate that in the end, the last one standing joins their ranks. To me, Halo Reach was a fantastic game, and it was a good way for Bungie to leave the series. So there are 10 FPS games. You don't have a choice. You're not going to make it. You guys let me know one that we didn't actually showcase today. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.